Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening. Or should I say, bonjour. Today we're bringing you a postcard from Paris. Paris is located in the north of France on the banks of the River Seine and is the country's capital city. The city is served by Charles de Gaulle International Airport, the second busiest airport in Europe after London Heathrow. There are around 2.1 million people living in Paris and just over 5 million people working there. The city welcomes over 45 million visitors per year, 60% of whom are foreigners. You can call a person from Paris a Parisian if he is male and a Parisienne if she is female. Later today we will meet a Parisienne named Helene. She is stylish and beautiful. Why don't we start with the glorious Eiffel Tower, perhaps Paris's most famous landmark. It took 2 years, 2 months and 5 days to build this tower, which was completed in March 1889. It was designed and engineered by Gustave Eiffel as a temporary construction for the Universal Exposition in 1900. The tower was supposed to be dismantled, brought down, right after the exposition. But, of course, it's still there. At 984 feet, or 324 metres tall, including its antenna, it's the tallest building in Paris. Until 1930, it was the tallest building in the world. If you walked from the bottom to the top of the Eiffel Tower, you would climb 1,655 steps. Nowadays, however, tourists use lifts, or elevators, as they say in America. Another famous landmark in Paris is the Arc de Triomphe. Some people call this the greatest arch in history. The arch is engraved with the names of the French generals who led troops under Napoleon Bonaparte. Napoleon, if you don't already know, was the leader of France from 1769 until 1821. Next, Notre Dame Cathedral is a big attraction in Paris and actually receives more visitors than the Eiffel Tower. Over 13 million visitors per year. This Catholic cathedral took over 180 years to build. 180 years! What were they doing? And it was finally finished in 1345. On the top of the towers in the cathedral, you can find gargoyles. Over 5,000 gargoyles, in fact. Do you know what a gargoyle is? Napoleon Bonaparte was crowned Emperor of France in 1804, but perhaps the most well-known figure associated with the cathedral is Victor Hugo's Hunchback from the novel The Hunchback of Notre Dame. A movie of this book was made by Disney in 1996, and a sequel, The Hunchback of Notre Dame 2, was made in 2002. Have you seen these movies? I guess you have seen or heard of the Louvre. It's one of the largest and most famous museums in the world and a must-see if you go to Paris. It welcomes over 8 million visitors per year, which makes it the world's most visited art museum. The Mona Lisa lives here, along with the Venus de Milo and 300,000 other pieces of art. A good tip is that you can enter the Louvre free on the first Sunday of every month. A huge glass pyramid outside the Louvre, designed by the same architect who made the Miho Museum in Japan, has given the museum a more modern feel. It has been said that there are 666 panes of glass in the pyramid, the number of the devil. This myth was mentioned in Dan Brown's Da Vinci Code, but the French government say that there are actually 673. What do you think? Can you count the pieces of glass in the pyramid? The Champs-Élysées is perhaps one of the most famous avenues in the world. It is 1.25 miles or 2 kilometres long and is famous for luxury brands like Louis Vuitton and Cartier. There are also popular brands there too, like Nike, Zara, Benetton, Adidas, in fact the biggest Adidas store in the world, and Gap, the biggest Gap in continental Europe. As well as being a trendy shopping street, since 1975, it's also been the location of the final leg and the award ceremony of the Tour de France. There are mainly shops and offices here. Nobody lives on the Champs-Élysées due to the high rent. Rents are particularly high on the north side, as this is the best place for sunlight. Some people who don't have to worry about rent in Paris, I guess, are the leaders of the French government. France has a president who lives at the Élysée Palace in Paris, and a Prime Minister who lives at the Hotel Matignon. There are many government ministries located near the Matignon. The Ritz Hotel, located right in the heart of Paris, began operating in 1898 in preparation for the World Expo. It's the oldest Ritz in the world and probably the most luxurious. It's always winning awards like the best hotel in the world, the hotel of the century, the dream hotel, and so on. Although Paris is famous for museums, monuments, historical spots, and old-fashioned glamour, there are also newer tourist spots too. Disneyland Resort Paris, or Euro Disney, is a major tourist attraction for visitors from all over Europe. The park received 14.5 million visitors in 2007. Now, if you're interested in sightseeing that's a little bit unusual, you can travel underground into the Paris sewers. Do you know what a sewer is? This system of sewers in Paris was part of Napoleon's engineering project for the city and takes all the waste from Paris out into the farm country. The network of tunnels and underground waterways runs for 1,300 miles. I wonder what the smell is like down there. Something else underground, and something a little scarier, are the catacombs. They were established at the end of the 18th century to clean up Paris by putting graves and bone chapels under street level. If you ever find yourself walking through Paris's left bank, remember that there are thousands of bones underneath you. The catacombs featured in the movie Interview with a Vampire. Antonio Banderas' character lived there. The catacombs are also mentioned in the musical Les Miserables. Speaking of cemeteries, Oscar Wilde, the famous Irish writer, once said, "When good Americans die, they go to Paris." Indeed, as well as being a great place to live, it seems that Paris is also a popular place to be buried. Napoleon established the Père Lachaise Cemetery, a little outside the city, in 1804. The cemetery is now known as the burial spot of major figures in the arts world, from Molière to Balzac. composer Chopin to author Oscar Wilde, from Edith Piaf to Jim Morrison of The Doors. It seems that this cemetery is a popular place to hang out. Now, back to life. It's said that when young Englishmen used to arrive in Europe, they were shocked and amazed by the naughtiness of Paris, especially the risque cabarets. Have you ever seen one? The most famous and oldest of these cabarets is the Moulin Rouge, made famous again in the movie Moulin Rouge, which starred Ewan McGregor and Nicole Kidman. Paris has a very large network of small movie theatres. It is said that movie fans can see 300 old or new movies from all over the world on any day of the week. Some films filmed in Paris include Deep Impact, Armageddon, The Devil Wears Prada, and The Bourne Identity. Have you seen Paris in any movies? As you may have heard, Paris is stylish. It is perhaps the world's capital city of fashion. Most of the great fashion houses such as Yves Saint Laurent, Versace, Hermès, and Pierre Cardin can be found on the city's right bank. But be careful, most of the shops in Paris are closed on Sundays and Mondays. And during the week, they open at 10 a.m, then close at 12 noon for a 2-hour lunch break and open again from 2 to 6:30. Paris is also an amazing food city. People come from all over France to live in Paris, bringing with them tastes from all over the country. You can eat ratatouille from Provence, crepes from Brittany, and beef bourguignon from Burgundy. In Paris, you can try one of France's 500 different cheeses. The French love cheese. And you can also, of course, drink wine from one of France's different wine-producing regions, such as Champagne, Burgundy, and Beaujolais. Cafe culture is big business in Paris, and you'll see Parisians sitting outside drinking coffee or wine from morning till night. There are also a lot of dogs. There are actually more dogs in Paris, approximately 300,000, than there are children. More dogs than children in Paris. If you go to the city, you'll see plenty of dogs sitting beside their owners in cafes around the city. Like any other European city, Paris is easiest and most enjoyable to see on foot. But if you really need to sit down to travel, the metro is the only way. With 300 stations connected by 214 kilometres of rails comprised of 16 lines. Paris also has a bike-sharing system called Vélib, with more than 20,000 public bicycles, which can be rented by anyone for short and medium distances, even if you're taking a one-way trip. On to sports now. Paris's Stade de France, built for the 1998 FIFA World Cup, is used for football, rugby union, and track and field athletics events. This is where the French national rugby team play their home matches and the French national football team plays their major tournament qualifiers. Soccer is the main sport. Paris Saint-Germain Football Club is Paris's professional home team and the richest club in France. Its nickname is Les Parisiens, or the Parisians. Tennis is also quite popular. The French Open is held every year at the Roland Garros National Tennis Centre in Paris. And the city has also hosted the Olympic Games twice. Do you know in which years? I'll tell you. 1900 and 1924. The Olympic Committee was actually born in Paris's Sorbonne in 1894. The Sorbonne established as a college in 1257, is perhaps the most famous part of the University of Paris. The Sorbonne is mentioned in some famous songs, such as Peter Stardet's Where Do You Go To My Lovely, and the Pet Shop Boys' Let's Make Lots of Money. Can you find any other songs about Paris? Speaking of money, Paris, as with the rest of France, uses the euro. You know, a cocktail in the Ritz Hotel can cost up to $300. How many euros is that? It's a lot, I think. How does Paris sound to you? Stylish? Historical? Exciting? To tell us what it's like to live in Paris, today we're welcoming Helene. She's beautiful. Let's meet her now. Helene, it's great to see you today.
Yeah.
How are you doing?
Good, thank you.
Thanks so much for joining us.
You're welcome.
Take a seat.
So, my name is Hélène Salvini Fujita. The reason for such a long name is that my dad is French-Italian and my mom is Japanese.
I see. Okay, so you're of mixed heritage.
Yes, I am.
Right.
I was born in Paris and I grew up in between Paris and Tokyo during my childhood.
So you were travelling between Tokyo and Paris for
Yes.
most of your life?
A lot,
Okay.
almost every year I would say.
If you had to describe Paris in a guidebook, what would you say?
Paris in a guidebook. First of all, I would definitely say that you have to go.
Right, that's
you
the first
have to.
point.
I mean, once in your life, it's definitely a city to visit because it's so unique in its architecture and it's simply so charming. As a tourist, I think it's definitely a must-see city, and it's just this city in a shell shape.
In a shell shape?
Yeah, it's like a shell. How it's made is that it's circular.
Okay.
So you've got 20 districts, and they all start from the center, and they just go around each other, and then the further you go into numbers,
Yes.
basically you reach the suburbs of Paris.
Wow, I didn't realise that.
It's a very convenient city, I'd say, when you want to just stroll around the streets. Yeah.
For example, then, where would the Eiffel Tower be in the shell?
Eiffel Tower is in the south, what we call the left bank, Rive Gauche. It's in the 7th district.
Right. So, of course, the Eiffel Tower is extremely famous, one of the most famous monuments in France. The Champs-Élysées?
Champs-Élysées.
Champs-Élysées?
Yes, I love it when English-speaking people say Champs-Élysées. It's very cute, but it's you don't pronounce the P. So Champs-Élysées.
Champs-Élysées.
Yes.
Have you ever been?
Yeah,
Of
of course,
course.
many times. It used to be a very only touristy street or area, but in fact, I'd say from the early 2000s or so, they've made it even more and more local. So I was sometimes going grocery shopping on the Champs-Élysées.
Wow, how wonderful, Helene.
Well, for many tourists, yeah, that's for sure.
Trying to buy your carrots with 14 million other people at the same time. Let's take a look at some other famous monuments in Paris and find out what you think.
Okay.
Here we can see the Arc de Triomphe.
Yes, you got this one right.
Yes, is that good enough? Wonderful.
What I like about l'Arc de Triomphe is that it's, how geometrically most of the city is constructed. And when you're at the bottom of the avenue just on the Place de la Concorde, and you look up, it's right in front of you, all the way in the back. And it's just how it fits so perfectly in the, picture is just what makes L'Arc de Triomphe so beautiful, especially when it's lit up at night.
Sure,
Yeah.
yes.
This is another place you can also reach the roof or the top.
Oh, really?
Yes, you can. You see people standing at the
that
top of
right?
it. Yes, you can.
So there are stairs, perhaps, inside.
I think so. I don't know if stairs or an elevator. I don't know if they managed to build something inside. But I'm sure it's a beautiful view.
Yes,
Must
I'm
be a
sure
beautiful
it is
view.
too. Have you ever been to Notre Dame?
Notre-Dame.
Notre-Dame.
de Paris.
Have you ever been?
Yes, this one I have been.
Nice.
Several times, in fact. I'm not, Catholic, religious, but it's just a really beautiful place to be. When you walk inside, it's this, especially in the summer, when it's hot outside and you walk inside a church, it's always very cool.
That's right.
And the smell and just the whole atmosphere is so soothing. And I took many of my foreign friends to Notre Dame. It's now amazingly renovated completely. The whole building is now all white again.
Oh,
yes,
exactly.
they worked many years to clean up the surface of the church. So if you haven't been, this is the time to go.
Okay, that's
Yes,
your recommendation.
definitely.
How about the Louvre?
Le Louvre is...
It's beautiful when you say it, Elaine. Yes.
Well, I mean, the Louvre is... you never saw it all. Never. I mean, the collections that they have inside this museum is just endless. So, you can go as many times as you want and never be bored.
Right.
However, this place also is, filled with tourists. So I would suggest to your viewers that they go at night.
Okay.
Because there are some nights, I think on Thursday nights, in fact, it's open until 10 o'clock.
Right.
And it's a great experience to be walking around an almost empty museum. I mean, not any museum, but Le Louvre, at night. It's gives you a little bit of that feel that you get when you're watching Da Vinci Code.
Right,
Yeah.
right, yes.
And the pyramid outside, this glass pyramid. I remember when I first saw it, and I was 12 years old, and I thought, wow, it just doesn't fit right inside this, beautiful old architecture. But in fact, that's also what I like about just, ideas that, people have about the whole architecture of Paris.
Yes.
Is that they, you have to move on from history. You have to, keep building new things so that the city is alive. And I thought that this pyramid is a good example of mixing modern and old architecture.
Absolutely.
Now, when I see it, I think it was a fabulous idea.
Yeah, I think so too. We heard that there were sewers in Paris running underground that tourists go to see.
Yes.
Have you ever been to the sewers in Paris?
Do you think I have?
You look very clean today, so...
Well, yeah, I like it outside better than underground, I prefer to stay on the surface of Paris. I know when I think that, the city is very old and, all the people living, I'm really not interested to see what's underneath.
I don't blame you.
Yeah.
So if our students go to Paris, they heard that they should probably travel on the metro underground. Is the metro cleaner than the sewers?
I hope so. But for Japanese people, I mean, they will find it not so clean. But the good thing about the Parisian subway is that it's very, it's very practical. I mean, the subway in Tokyo is also very practical, but in Paris, stops are very close to one another. So you get almost to any place within half an hour at the most. And it's just really fast, and there are, trains coming every minute and a half. So I would definitely recommend to get on the subway.
Right. How did you get around the city?
I used to walk a lot because I had dogs.
I see,
Yes.
okay.
Paris is a city for dogs. I mean, I think I read that it's the city that has the most dog ownership
Yes.
in the world.
That's right.
And so I used to walk my dogs a lot, of course, you know, in my neighborhood, but also outside.
What is your favourite bar, cafe or restaurant in Paris?
Well, you have to know something about Paris is that it's, well, people like to say that it's fashionable. So trendy places change very quickly.
Right, right.
When I lived there, I liked to go to the district of, inside the 6th district, there is an area called Odéon. There's movie theaters, there's a lot of bars and cafes, and what I like about that area is that it's got a good, you know, young and adult vibe to it. Just the cafes and bars are cramming with people.
Right, so it's a very lively place.
Very lively, yeah. So I would recommend walking around Odéon during, you know, the afternoon or even in the evening.
Right. What is some of the food that you miss most about Paris or France?
Okay, this might sound very cliche, but I miss the cheese.
Oh, really? Of course,
I miss
yes.
cheese so bad.
Yeah, I'm sure you do.
And also cheap wine. It's the what we call, you know, vin de table. It's just what you would drink on a very casual meal, whether it's lunch or dinner. But there's such a great selection, and you know, it's affordable and just tasty. Also, once in a while, I wouldn't mind having a nice entrecôte, as we call it in French.
What is it?
Entrecôte is basically a beef steak,
Right.
but it's a very thin steak, and it's grilled.
Right.
And you just have that with some French fries on the side. And it's very simple, but somewhat, whenever I have that, I feel very French.
Okay.
Yeah.
Entrecôte.
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 You go in a restaurant and say, entrecôte, s'il vous plaît.
Okay, we'll practice that next time.
But you will be surprised the size. It's usually quite big.
Really?
Yes,
Compared to Japanese meat?
Oh, yes, yes. It's a big steak with a lot of fries most of the time, and you can even have that in a regular cafe.
Right.
You don't have to go to a brasserie or to a restaurant. Cafes in Paris, I mean in France, they also serve meals.
Right, and wine.
Yes, of
Of course.
Of course.
How would you describe Parisians?
Parisiennes?
Yes.
Les Parisiennes?
Les Parisiens?
It's the myth about Paris. Well, if you read the Japanese fashion magazines, Parisians are all very beautiful
That's
and
right,
stylish.
like yourself, yes.
Yeah, they walk candidly around the 1st and 2nd and 6th and 7th districts of Paris. I won't say they don't exist. They do. But those are just, you know, limited to certain areas. Most French women, or most Parisians, I think if you compare them to Japanese women,
Yes.
they care less about the way they look.
Okay, that's interesting.
They are... The concept of being fashionable in France is very different from what Japanese people think. When I read magazines here and when I observe women here, being fashionable is wearing, you know, trendy clothes that magazines tell you it's trendy right now.
Right, right.
It doesn't really matter if it looks good or bad on you. It's about being, you know, in style. And it goes from fashion to makeup to hairstyle to you know, your accessories.
Yes.
almost even to your lifestyle these days. They tell you how it's, what kind of lifestyle is trendy today. Whereas in France, being fashionable is about knowing your own way of living, having your own kind of lifestyle. That's what's fashionable. So, you have your own style of clothing, your own style of walking about the city, your own way of putting your hair up, which is not perfect.
Right.
But the messy look is also a style. So it's about being more unique.
Sure.
That's what it is in France. So Parisians are just very different from one another most of the time. And, the fact that they're not too conscious of how they look
Yes.
is probably what makes them look fashionable.
Right. What advice would you give to our viewers who would want to visit or perhaps live in Paris?
Forget the tour buses. Forget traveling in a Japanese guided tour. Just go and walk. Walk around the city. That's the best way to enjoy Paris.
Right.
And to discover, small charms. It's not all about the historical monuments. It's also about the local little things that you discover on your own, and that's what makes the experience memorable and just charming.
Sure.
Yeah.
Helene, thanks so much for joining us today. It's been a real pleasure talking to you.
Me too. Thank you very much.
Hope
Merci.
to see you again. Merci.
Merci, à bientôt.
Bye-bye.